Suzan Polgar lives and works in New York City. She sees the world in a very unusual way. Suzan has the brain of a genius, perfectly adapted to her single lifelong obsession. Suzan is the first female chess grandmaster. But she wasn't born with her brilliant brain. It was created by an extraordinary childhood. Suzan is the living proof of an amazing theory that any ordinary child can be turned into a genius. If Suzan's home was ever so humble, her father was a man with a unique vision. A trained psychologist, Laszlo Polgar had made a deep study of the childhood origins of genius. The archetypal example was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Already composing at the age of 5, he seemed to be the classic case of a child born with special gifts. But Laszlo noted that Mozart's father Leopold, himself an accomplished musician, gave his son early and invaluable schooling in his craft. Laszlo decided that specialized training was more important than natural talent, and he had an astonishing plan that would put his theory to the test. When Zsuzsa, or Suzan, was born in April 1969, the Polgar family experiment was underway. Her father had already written a book called Bringing Up Genius, and it said that genius was not born, but made.
It reads here a quote: A zseni egyenlő munka plusz szerencsés körülmények, which means a genius equals work and fortunate circumstances.
By fortunate circumstances, Laszlo meant the happy home that he and his wife Clara would provide, and the hard work would be guaranteed by schooling Suzan himself.
My father believed that the potential of most children is not used optimally. He felt that there is not much I would get out of going to school daily.
Laszlo planned to train Suzan in mathematics, but she chose her own future by a happy accident.
One day, unexpectedly, in a search for a new toy, I opened a cabinet and a chess set fell out. And I asked my mom, "What is it?" And she said, "Oh, this is a chess set, although I can't help you much with it because I don't know how to play with it, but wait until Daddy comes home and he'll teach you with pleasure."
There was no history of brilliant chess players in the Polgar family. Laszlo himself was strictly an amateur. But he was convinced he could train his daughter to be a genius at anything, as long as she was a willing student.
My father strongly believes various players.
This massive effort was required throughout Suzan's childhood to commit the complex secrets of chess to memory. The number of possible games is vastly greater than the number of atoms in the universe. But chess chunks are the order in the chaos. These small but typical formations appear again and again in different games. They are the basic words in the language of chess. Most 10-year-olds know only 10,000 words. At the same age, Suzan was devoting her childhood to learning 100,000 chess chunks. This process would physically transform her brain. With constant repetition, information moves from working memory into long-term memory. Working memory lasts only seconds until the electrical connections between neurons die away. But in long-term memory, the repetition of these currents stimulates the neurons to form new and permanent connections. The memorized information is now hardwired and can last a lifetime. Like anyone else, Suzan's long-term memory is a storehouse of family faces and lifetime experiences. But now, chess chunks were also indelibly imprinted on her brain.
Checkmate.
Susan, that's not a nice way to say hello.
When it comes to chess, Suzan can perform miracles of memory. In fact, she's doing something that should be impossible. An ongoing task like a game of chess is handled by a mental function known as working memory at the very front of the brain. The relevant brain cells, or neurons, store any necessary information by forming a network of electrical connections. But these connections die away within seconds, so working memory is limited. It's like a temporary scratch pad that can only store about 7 items of information. That's why the 7 digits of a new phone number are about as much as most people can remember. But just how good is Suzan's working memory? This is Thompson Street in New York, home of the city's sidewalk chess cafes. And we're about to give Suzan a memory test. Can she memorize all the pieces and pawns on this diagram? That's 28 items of information. To make things even trickier, the diagram has been pasted to the side of a cafe's speeding van. Suzan only has time for a single 3-second glance. But watch this. Suzan's working memory is working overtime. She's made an exact copy.
About what to drink, about what to order.
It seems that Vincente doesn't remember all 23 orders individually. Instead, he packs the information down to make it manageable using the normal 7 items of working memory.
I associate the person, the this, and the number. It's like all together. I don't know how to explain, but it comes all together.
He forms a strong mental image of each customer and then attaches that customer's orders to the image. This seems to be a common technique used by experts in all fields. It's called chunking.
It is a little like phone numbers. One of my best phone numbers was 492-1492. And given that 1492 is when Columbus discovered America, you don't have to keep track of the individual digits any longer. All the 4 digits will be retrieved as a single group from memory.
Suzan handles the information on a chessboard in exactly the same way. She doesn't remember all the pieces individually. Instead, she breaks everything down into chunks. The menacing formation of whites, queen and bishops is one chunk. The heavily protected black king is another. Suzan only has to remember 5 chunks, easily manageable in normal working memory. But without chunking, her memory is no better than anyone else's. And here's the proof. In the chess diagram on the other side of the van, the pieces have been placed at random by a non-chess player. So this time, there are no recognizable chunks. Now Suzan's trying to remember 24 individual pieces, and she can't do it.
All the pieces are in random position. It's just so much harder to remember, especially